is democratic socialism mixed in with social democracy.
Okay, well then I guess they're not really socialist per se in that case. Dominique, where in New York are you from?
They aren't. It's a combination, but they identify as socialists because I think the idea is money should not be more important than people. So basically, you have to prioritize making sure everybody's taken care of and nobody's being robbed. You get what I'm saying?
I do, and I think there's many social democrats who would sort of have the same view.
And I'm just kind of waiting for someone to get here. I would think with the title of the video, I would already have some bots just trolling through here. But the internet itself actually feels kind of weird at the moment. I don't know why. It's just so hard. To get these posts to share properly, I go and look at them and it's just not right. Well, anyways, let's see here if I got a little group worth sharing in here. Let's go with Math's Deception of the Horde. Okay. Fucking abandoning ship. Twitter has not been working particularly well. And the very most interesting of people seem to have a pre-planned drama to play out in that regard, including Scaramucci and a bunch of leftists and shit retweeting each other and making fun of each other. But anyways, I got retweeted by Rick Wilson and nobody liked the fucking tweet, which is weird because Rick Wilson can fucking retweet something about somebody's dog farting and 150 people like it. Kind of amazing. So, I was going to give it just another couple seconds. See if anybody wanted to join us here on this lovely Friday night. Isn't it Friday night? Isn't it? Yep, sure as fuck is. Saturday morning. How about that? You can tell I've been, just hip with the times, because I don't even know when the fuck Friday night's rolling around. I'm not getting old at all. But anyways, so I guess we will begin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Lost Begotten's tiny little fish room. So, today I had an old friend named Punt. Yes, that's his name. He asked me if I thought the two-party system would ultimately collapse. And I thought this was a fascinating question. my initial impression, although not any sort of response, was, does he mean before or after human civilization ends? You know, because when human civilization ends, it's pretty much counts as a two-party collapse, I would say. Or like, you know, America itself ending, yeah, that pretty much counts as a two-party collapse. But, he was talking about basically socialism and how the two I can't even say it like I used to. How the two-party system was just a means by which to maintain authoritarian control with the illusion of choice, basically. To which I replied, sound like me 15 years ago. Because I remember telling him that exact same shit. And I believe his response was, I don't really care about politics. That just cracks me up, the circle, you know. But anyways, let me know if you're here. Let me know if you watch the video. Please make sure you comment if you see my videos. I need to... I have no reliable way of seeing if anybody watches these things. If you don't watch these videos, you're basically just allowing yourself to exist as a dumbass when you don't have to. And I don't mean to be mean, but that's how much information I provide on these videos. And, you know, I'm sorry if they don't start as fast-paced as all the stuff that you've been programmed to be a moron with. But I'm trying to deprogram. I'm trying to get the moron out of you. Okay? And the first part of that is actually taking the time to think about something, taking the time to relax your mind, taking the time to absorb, or absorb, whichever you prefer, you know, depends on whether or not there's lotion involved, I'm sure, to absorb the information. Okay, Kitten is trying to absorb my lap, and I guess I shall have to let her. I have no choice in the matter anymore, I guess. Isn't that right, Kitten? How are you? Anyways. Alright. So, once again, I'm having to come in here and just carry a fucking video, apparently, without anybody interacting. And that's really goddamn annoying, I must say. I might have to cause some chaos and destruction, just because I can. I might do it in an encircling pattern around YouTube's headquarters. But anyways, I was not going to be doing the quote-unquote crazy talk on this video. Even though, well, my magical power is basically on record at this point. So, you know. Your phobias of me cannot apply to the logic. And that's a disjointed statement because I had a much better one earlier and I thought I was going to be able to remember it, but I couldn't. Fuck. People can have phobias of me. Let me try to explain. People can have phobias of me. Who I am, who I so supposedly think I am, even though it's just so blatantly fucking obvious. At this point especially. But what nobody can do is actually argue any logical point about why the world doesn't need me right now. And one of those things it needs is somebody who can speak centrist sense and doesn't encourage the persecution of religious minorities. See, one thing that hypocrisy has unfortunately done to America, just when they were starting to really pay attention to the words of Christ and become less and less like the Catholics and form a, just about in the mid 80s, right up until about 87, 88, 89, it was already starting to kind of come apart in New York City and Chicago. In the bad areas it was still bad, but in the suburbs and in the mixed demographic areas, people were becoming just fine with being mixed demographics, and people were helping the poor, and compassionate conservative was a thing, and Republicans and Democrats could actually fucking get work done by compromising, And it wasn't perfect because there wasn't enough accountability. There wasn't enough oversight. You will always, no matter what political system you're in, have shortcomings due to lack of oversight. But that doesn't make those political systems bad. You just have to determine which political system naturally creates its own form of oversight in the most effective, self-sustaining manner. Corruption is the problem. Okay, let's not beat around the bush as far as like comparing the models, because every model has its, utopian argument. But those utopian states never occur because of corruption. So in deciding which political model is the best, it's not about absolutes or utopian versions. It's about reality. It's about how it affects, how those systems are affected into actual governing structures historically, and what they might look like in an individual area today or in the future because of technology and because of, the benefits and dangers of technology. So, I don't have any talking points or anything, any kind of notes or memos. Let me go ahead and just put a bigger fucking camera up, since nobody's joining me anyways. And I'll just put that back up in case the broadcast goes right. Oh, look. Backdrop. I can put a backdrop up and be all fancy and pretend we have like some sort of a half-ass studio. Yeah. Come on. All right. There we go. What's that? All right. There. Now all you can pay attention to is how gigantic my forehead is. Woohoo! Okay. So, the question of the hour is socialism. And when comparing socialism to the American model, you can't just say socialism versus capitalism. You can't just give me statistics about capitalism and compare to them socialism. Because again, you're using utopian models, and it also doesn't understand that America changes every fucking 4 or 8 years. I mean, changes in very significant ways. And especially over periods of like 20 and 30 years, there's some pretty significant changes. Now, before I get into that, and to keep myself from getting sidetracked too much while I discuss it, after I talk about the actual logistics of the matter, I want to discuss who's behind programming people to support different points of view. Okay, because there's a far left programming and a far left right programming, and that's what gave us Donald Trump. And he's backed by Russia, and so is all the far left and far right programming, and I'm going to discuss that later on in the program. In the broadcast. Whatever this is, just me picking my nose in a little fucking box here, whatever. So, where to begin? Comparing socialism to the American model needs to take into the effect two things before you can even get started. One is how the two-party system is supposed to work. Okay? And the other is how it's working not working right now. Okay? Now, how it's supposed to work, and this is something that people really didn't know, and only some people know recently, have learned this recently. Some people, like people who were limited, in a limited way, still for the Electoral College, although they thought we needed to readdress the 3/5 compromise situation regarding the Electoral College. It really needs to be done, and there needs to be a national security requirement for the Electoral College. Otherwise, there's no point in it existing. I mean, it really failed us this time. And that, in large part, brings me to the exact logistical manner in which the two-party system is supposed to work, and why two major parties should be a beneficial thing. You see, we had, in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, some very brilliant strategic minds working within our government. And they helped guide politics in the wake of McCarthyism to make our overall political system stronger. But at the same time, there have been, this entire time, two different forces working against that. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about in the reality of the situation. Now, ideally, and what we should be moving towards in this country, if we want to survive and all, I'm just saying, is a system in which the Electoral College isn't done away with, but there is a reformation of it, and basically a national service requirement for electors. You want people who have been in national security for a specific number of years, or who have a security clearance at the bare minimum and can look at the the basic classified data needed to make a determination on whether or not a political party in this country has been overcome by a foreign power. Okay? Because that is alone what the Electoral College should be designed for, and should have no ability, and I'm talking severe reformation here, okay? And anybody who's thinking that it still exists or shouldn't still exist, hear me out. They should have no ability to overturn the popular vote unless there is a national security issue with the candidate. So if there's an electoral victory with one candidate and they are secure, then the Electoral College can cast their votes. If there's a popular vote victory that also is an electoral victory, we're basically SOL. And that brings me back to the ideal way that a two-party system is supposed to work. The reason why we have two parties in this country, theoretically, according to national security think, okay, is because these two major parties are supposed to resist extreme movement, okay? And the reason why you need to resist extreme movement is because America is not all-powerful and without enemies. America has enemies who are in fact superior to it in many ways. Many, many fucking ways. Get it through your skull right now. The media lies to you about one thing and one thing only, because they are required to by the federal government. And that is about just how much of a threat Russia is. There was a law passed after Kennedy got killed, and it mandated that any investigation and reporting not provoke Russia, basically. And that mandate of the Warren Commission, is what it's referred to as, is basically adhered to not only by that specific commission, but by many entities ever since in the White House. Okay, including the FCC, which governs broadcast media. Now, I suppose one of the reasons why I've been able to be suppressed by the Russians on an American platform is because of that. Yeah. Despite the quality and content of my broadcast, there's nobody fucking watching right now. And, you know, whatever. I'm gonna stick around in this fucking place of existence for about 3 more years. And I'm done, son. Y'all can have it. Anyways. So, in a two-party system, you're supposed to have a series of primaries. And in these primaries, your candidates are supposed to be vetted. Okay? And now there's, generally speaking, 2 major ways that economic policy wind up being formed. And platforms pretty much line up in logical ways along those sides. It's when the the divisive media campaigns come in and try to influence one side and give them an extreme point of view that can't be compromised on, that we get to political stalemates or into irrational situations, like, Republicans caring about children up until the day that it's born, They're supposed to be Christians. They should care about children. That shouldn't be a political issue at all, And I always said if Christians wanted to complain about how much our government has to spend on helping poor people, well, then they should get up off their asses and go help more poor people so that the government doesn't have to do it. But what do I know? I'm just the one they claim to follow. Anyways. So in your two-party system, you'll have what amounts to two major candidates, that people assume have been vetted. I mean, a lot of the reason why people think that the Trump-Russia shit is made up, even on the Trump side, some of them actually think, oh, that could never happen. Okay? But the assumption, what we've learned, is that in a lot of ways, what we assume to be law is not really enforceable. And our security, the security of our political system as a whole, is actually very fragile. And that includes the programming of how people think from childbirth and once they reach adult life. So, we're educated to believe in this country. And we learn a lot about how this country should be, can be, how it was in the past, how it's changed, and how we're supposed to be trying to build a better future for ourselves. And when it comes to my generation, when we got out of school, we were inundated with online propaganda that we thought was just educational things, just, oh, you need to, keep learning, and I want to learn more and more, and we didn't realize we were being propagandized for one reason and one reason only, because we thought the Cold War was over, when it wasn't. The Cold War was already back in full swing in 1998. That's what people don't realize. That's why they've not even realized that they've been programmed. Because most of what people think right now, they started thinking as of the late 90s. And of course, these aren't any new ideas. They go back 150 years, back to Marxism, back to socialism, back to Lenin, back to Stalin. Which brings me to, let's talk about the actual examples. What happens in our country, in reality, is we don't have a two-party system. We have two major established parties, and we have a specific process by which somebody else can run for president. The reason why you don't have a third person on the ballot is because nobody's established a political party that has broad-based support in enough states to get someone on a presidential ballot nationally. Okay, this is an actual set process that you should probably look up, because I don't know it well enough to explain it, but I understand it on a basic enough level to know that that's how it works. You can win the presidential race in one state and still not be, on the national ticket at all. But that's only theoretically. That doesn't actually happen in reality. See? Now, when the decisions get made in this country, what you have is a way things should happen naturally, based upon our values and what we've taught ourselves. Then you have what actually happens, which is based on corruption and talk radio, and now the internet. And oh my god, I'm sorry, I had something deep in my fucking ear and I had to get it out. But anyway. Nobody fucking watches this shit anyway, so I don't care. People are too stupid to value what I say, I guess. While there may be more entertaining and more put together shit, and while, if I had time or some people working on it like everybody else fucking does, I could pre-write shit and record it in a little small fucking way for you to understand. I still wouldn't have any goddamn viewers, so it wouldn't be worth it. So, unfortunately, if you if you want to actually demold yourself from a brainwashed person into a sane person, you're just going to have to put up with listening to the crazy guy on YouTube who thinks he's Jesus. Tried to explain. Jesus is a word. I am not a word. I had a name. I have a name now. I had a name back then. It wasn't Jesus. I don't know why. Because I am is a fucked up name to have. And that's what Jesus means. I am. That's it. Now me, if you want to know who I am simply the reincarnating prophet. No big deal. I just, happen to create everything. Sorry, was I saying something? Yep. I come back here over and over again to try to unfuck people's brains when exterior forces try to fuck them up. That's all I do. Bullshitters have convinced you that I do all these crazy magical things and that I'm just gonna I don't even want to say it. They didn't even get my fucking name right. Okay? So they don't really know. I open your eyes so that you can see what you've been blinding to, so that you can be free and preserve yourselves. Okay, the truth that will set you free and preserve you. That's what I do. The truth that will set you free and preserve you. All those other fucking things are fictional characters. And if you think I in any way resemble one of these fucking delusional fools who go, I'm Jesus Christ, get over yourself. Okay? The fact of the matter is, you've been bullshitted by both sides your entire life. And all I'm trying to do is help you. One of those things you've been bullshitted about is the very manner of my return. You've been bullshitted by one side to think that I don't even exist. You've been bullshitted by the other side to think that if I exist, I have to be Zeus. I was trying to think of something funnier than that. Q. Yes, I could be Q from Star Trek. Just, well, I kind of am, but different. And in fact, I think I might do an episode where I talk about how the secret that the Q were holding from Picard is that the Q are humans in their ultimate future state, come back to guide humanity. But that discounts the, that's more of the utopian side of things. That's the way a human would write, because they have a limited understanding of what Godhood actually is. And what you may not realize is that it is the single most agonizing, tedious state of being that there could possibly be. There is no greater form of misery than Godhood. Otherwise, you're probably dealing with an imposter. So, what I mean by that is, somebody who is actually God doesn't want to be God, doesn't want to be seen as God, doesn't want people to bow down to them, wants you to have free will, wants to have communion with you, wants to be just like you, but wants you to do better for yourselves. Now, back to the subject at hand, huh? Jeez. The utopian aspect of the two-party system versus the reality of it has a lot to do with the utopian aspect of socialism versus the reality of it. And it is in fact the reality of socialism that has sent the very propagandists which have fucked it all up for us. And here's what I mean by that. Because of the far left influence on the Democratic Party, and I don't mean social democrats, I mean socialists. Okay, anti-capitalists. People who forget that it's really just greedy, apathetic bank practices that are the problem, not necessarily capitalism. But capitalism requires regulation, and that's why we vote Democrat. That's what a Democrat is. It's somebody who thinks that capitalism should be regulated. And what a social democrat is somebody who thinks that certain aspects of utility, of public interest, should be owned by the government. But what they need to realize is that you're actually just Democrats. Because Democrats already believe that, and we've been doing that for years. And there's this idea that, no, you have to be a Bernie supporter to think that. And that Democrats somehow also want corporations to... No. Democrats are the reason why you have a 5-day work week and overtime and paid shit, rights, and yeah. Democrats have done the very best they can over time. It's called progress. It's where you get this little term called progressive. It's because Democrats are progressive. That's what we are. We're Democrats. We believe in democracy. We believe that everybody's voice should matter. We believe that everybody matters. But when socialism takes control of the country, the end result is what you have with Putin right now. Okay? You will have in the beginning far left and far right counter movements and counter revolutions. But in the end, you will wind up with the dictator who planned it all. Period. That's historically the way it's always happened. And what we have in this country is that plan in full effect. And Trump is not the dictator. Okay? It's going to be a young guy. And we're a ways from that and are in good shape to avoid it, actually. But I like to warn about the danger of things, not just the inevitability of things. Because I believe that there are at least enough people on this who watch this channel to pray and take what action they can. And I guess that'll be enough, because it must be. Now, because of this inevitable result, in our country at this time, and for, since there was a civil war, there have been Russians who sought to reclaim the entire western half of the United States. Did you know that? And they cooperated with the South in the Civil War, and they have been cooperating with them ever since. And it was, in fact, one of the beginnings of the British and Russian alliance was their mutual disdain for us until Britain was basically double-crossed by Russia. And we came to save their asses. But anyway, so this solitary power that socialism winds up becoming, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and a couple of different interesting little phases there. They've had Putin ever since. And they have ruined our political system, not ruined it, but done a lot of almost irreparable damage to it by causing former Confederates in this country to take over, by and large, one of the parties, the Republican Party. And one of the ways that they did this was by amplifying socialistic voices on the left. Okay? So bear that in mind if you wind up becoming a socialistic trumpet. You're the same as the neo-Nazis trying to take over the Republican Party, in a way. The same disruptive force. You're serving the same master. And that's not something I would be personally too comfortable with. But I used to be there too. Don't hate the messenger, that's all I'm saying. Basically, you're fucked if you do. It's nothing on me. Like I said, I'm just not even going to tolerate this fucking world for much longer. Whether that leaves me leaving or y'all leaving, I haven't decided yet. But I sure as hell ain't fucking sticking around with all the apathetic, gutless fucking wonders that are here. Especially in my own so-called family. It's just been too much of a damn disappointment. Gonna make some drastic changes. Get the hell out of Dodge, as it were. Anyways, that's just me bitching because I'm depressed and broke and fed up and yeah. Anyways, so democracy, as far as capitalism goes, is a subject that I've covered recently, but to reiterate on the video that is supposedly on that subject and not me, bitching and moaning. Before I get to that, let me bitch and moan some more, actually. I don't think it occurs to most people that I am tempted on a daily basis to just delete all the fucking videos here and just, try to completely reform my fucking life and pretend it all didn't happen and just pretend like I'm not involved in everything. Just to try to pay my fucking bills. The fact that I'm being forced into that situation really pisses me off. So anyways. Just bear in mind that by not supporting centrism, by falling in with right or left, by falling into apathy, by not believing what you used to believe when you were a kid, when you were taught about how great this country could be, and was, at that time at least. My friends, my family, because they just can't see the truth, have been helping Russia starve me to death. I get happy when I just have enough to eat a meal a day. But it's never enough to get any work done. Actually fucking do something that burns calories. I have to like conserve my energy just so I don't run out of food. That's fucking really, I'm living this way because I can see that we still have an enemy as a country. And because people are unwilling to listen. Or what? They want me to apologize for the reason why I have this wisdom. Why don't I just apologize for creating you? Because just imagine for a second how shitty it would be if you were wrong. I pray to God every day that I could be wrong. Sucks for me being right all the time. Sometimes I wonder if people are still in denial that Russia is their enemy and that Russia is behind all of these things because they're just so desperate to deny that I'm me and I'm back and you forgot all about me and that's the only reason why anybody could possibly reject me. You don't know how to identify me. If you don't know who I am, you don't know how to identify Christ. Speaking in terms that somebody who wouldn't know would understand, by the way. See, my name right now is Sean. When I was the king that would lead the Jews, my name was Tiberius. Kitten, what you know about Tiberius Julius Caesar? You know about him? Did you read about him in history class? Did you read about how Nero adopted him? Did he kick the shit out of some rebels? Did you hear about that? Did you hear about how he really didn't care about that, but only adopted him because he was afraid that he was the son of Caesar? Kitten doesn't know about that. Maybe y'all don't know about that either. Anyways. Yep. Christians without Jesus. Working out really well for you. See how that's happening? That doesn't really click? No. Maybe it's just me. This is what it looks like when I'm denied. Imagine for yourself in a hypothetical situation that it could look any other way. This is what it looks like when I'm denied. What a big pain in my ass. I wish, like, their version of Jesus would come and just like tell me I can retire. Just like, here you go, clock out. Okay. Done. Oh. Because I don't enjoy doing this any more than I enjoy hearing the fucking thoughts of people saying, why can't he just stay on subject? Why can't you just not need me? Huh? Why can't you just be smart? I have literally said thousands of things on these videos that human beings have completely failed to realize, as if they do not have eyes and ears. If people could just see the basic danger that they're in, I could convince myself that I was delusional. And that would be really handy, because I could just move on. Yes, people are not morons. Yay! Wouldn't that be the fucking day? No. See, there's different layers of morons. Because when people wind up, supporting Trump, they think everybody's a moron. When people wind up supporting Bernie, they think everybody's a moron. And most of the people that they are talking about actually are morons. But you know who isn't? The national security establishment of this country. We are not morons. And you know what we, the national security establishment of this country, have to fight against because they seek to destroy and undermine the national security of this country? Foreign agents trying to amplify these people and these people that think all the people in the middle are dumbasses. Because while you think you know a lot of things that people don't know, there's a reason why a lot of people don't know them. It's because it's bullshit. And while you in your pseudo-informed state are still more perceptive than the average mundane person, the fact remains you have been bullshitted. Does that make you a moron? Depends on whether or not you want to be honest with yourself. Now me, I was honest with myself. And I took a look at myself and I said, Self, you are a fucking moron. And I expect you to do better. So I did. But, everyone reserves the right to be butthurt and go la 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 until their hands fucking melt off. Because there's just so many things that if you're still on this far left or far right, then it's the same. It's the fucking same. It's the same because Russia wants both of them. That's why it's the same. There are so many foundational facts that have led you to where you are, and I'm telling you, they're all wrong too. Let's talk about oil. Do you know when the last time America was actually on top of the oil industry? Do you know when the last time ExxonMobil and Standard Oil Corp, before it was, 1898. Okay? It had a good 10-year run. That's about it. It never gained a worldwide dominant market share because of a company called Russia, Gazprom, Rosneft. The original version back then was different, but they've been divided up recently. And the Russians have not only controlled most of the oil on this planet for a very long time, but most of the oil-producing areas in the Middle East have been buying weapons exclusively from Russia, except for the place far leftists and far rightists love to hate, Saudi Arabia. And now, I'm not the biggest fan of Saudi Arabia, but you know what? They don't buy weapons from Russia. They're not our enemy. There are moderates there. There is politics there. There is progress there. And we're not to judge. We're not to violate the prime directive, if you will, as long as those people are our allies. Because they have warp engine technology. And fuck, Well, they have the warp cores that we need until we're independent. But the fact of the matter is, they're our ally. They're independent. They're aware of what Russia does. So they don't buy weapons from them. And that's a fucking start. But moving on from Saudi Arabia, a lot of different NATO allies experience the same far left and far right movements as we do here. And in the countries that wind up supporting Russia and buying weapons from them, things like this exist in their distant past and led up to revolutions and counter-revolutions and eventually a coup that took everything. And then that power isn't decided locally. It's decided by local votes. Those people feel like they have power, but they are programmed to think one thing on one side and one thing on another side, and what is actually decided for them is decided from outside forces who program and amplify the media sources that become their opinions. And this goes back to an ancient empire. Which brings me to the final segment. There's a place in the Bible that's not talked about a whole lot called media. And that's because it is the place where deceivers originate, basically. It's where the sons of Cain settled. And it's the land north of Nineveh. And they're not an indigenous type people. They're actually a very nomadic people. But they've always lived to the north of the Caucasus, and they've been known as Scythians and Ugrirs, and eventually the Horde. And I use the Horde as terminology because I don't like to be pointing my finger at an ethnicity or a religion. And the Horde are not of men. the people way at the power that you will never fucking see or contact, okay? They are not of men. And I know that's a lot for some people to grasp, but you had 4 major lineages: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And then you had the sons of Cain. The sons of Cain established Media, and then eventually the Perso-Babylonian Empire. And they have, throughout history, okay, let's just talk about the Horde. And my previous videos are all the proof that you need about everything I'm about to say. They have, throughout history, sent people to corrupt political parties while sending people to pretend to be their supporters, and sending immigrants to learn their culture and pretend to be locals and influence things in very insidious ways. They've done this for over 2,000 years. And that's what my previous videos have been about. So if you think that socialism is a joke, or that it's a good idea, or that it's not to be taken seriously, or the dangers of socialism are a joke or not to be taken seriously, better said, familiarize yourself with Joseph Stalin. Familiarize yourself with Lenin. The reason why capitalism is good is because it allows people to accept investment for an idea based upon their worthiness, their credit history, their resume, and the plan itself, or the idea itself, product itself, and allows other individuals to limit their liability from the production or implementation of that product or service. That's all capitalism is. And what that does is gives power to individuals. You have the power to become a business owner, to invest in other businesses, or to go and work for a business. That's freedom. You don't have that power under socialism. And, you know, while municipal utilities, I think, should remain municipal utilities and not be privatized, the fact of the matter is, that's something that we need to get out of the Democratic Party, is the support for privatization. We should make that a platform to end privatization of things, because we don't need a middleman taking extra profits and closing the books and denying accountability. It's just a bad idea. And first and foremost, the people who have supported it on the far right, they've probably been paid off by the Russians. They've probably been fucking in with the Confederacy this whole fucking time. And the reason why they wanted privatization was to get more and more spies in our fucking midst. And, you know, bless your little heart if you think I sound paranoid, but that's the fucking real world that we live in right now. And you need to wake up to it. Thanks for watching. Please click the like button. And, if you're still having trouble letting go of some brainwashing, if you're still having trouble seeing that the West is the bastion of freedom for mankind itself, and that America is the last best hope for humankind, please watch my previous videos about the history of the Russian horde's influence on history. Because a lot of what you know, or think you know, has been put in your mind to make you more easily controllable and to make this country fall apart. So, if you love what this country should be, you owe it to yourself to really consider what I'm saying. Thanks again, y'all. Peace. Click the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already.
In my heart and baby down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door the way you treated me too many times before. Oh, you know I want you there, I wanna be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side today I've died. 'Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine.